Welcome back to Naval Action and to the fifth episode of A Letter to the King. A Letter to the King is my attempt to describe the biff that is Euro PvP1 and what has been going on in the last week. And what a week it has been. This, I think, has been the bloodiest week in naval action history. That's a big call. I've only been covering this server for 5 weeks, but I can't imagine it's been any biffier than this. A reminder, I'm no clan leader. I watch things from the British side. As such, I see that half of the story, although what's been really good this week is I've managed to get a couple of piratey contacts, and I also had a chap contact me from the Dutch side, so I'm beginning to get myself a little bit more intelligence as to what is going on in some of the other areas. I've got multiple stories of the same engagement that tell different angles of it, let's say. I will try and describe what happened. I won't get into some of the individual heroics of individual captains, other than myself, of course. Um, I'll just try and give a bit of an account of what happened. I might not know exactly how it happened. So let's remind ourselves where we were a week ago, and it seems such a long time ago. The Danes had smashed the British almost out of existence across the South American Bight. The Spanish were beginning to push into the Americans across here. The Americans were making a bit of a fight back against the pirates. There was great slumber in this neck of the woods. The Dutch, not a great deal of activity. They've been pushing the Swedes back a wee bit. And the French, and I forgot this last week, I couldn't work out where the French had pulled a flag. But the Danes had given them a port, and rather hilariously, I think they'd given the French the port of Ponce. Made great sense to me. So the French were very happy in Ponce. It was a chance of a bit of a springboard to get back against the Brits. The Brits realised this and very quickly sent a long distance attack to say bonjour to the French, and the French basically said au revoir and got out of there as quickly as they could. The Danes, if you recall, had taken, I think it was something like 14 ports in 4 nights down here. The Brits repushed hard, and over 5 nights they slowly sent the Danes packing. Lots of deep water battles, some classic shallow waters, but eventually the Brits managed to clear the Danes completely out of the Bight here. And indeed managed to cap 2 or 3 Dane ports off the south central Haiti there. And that's an interesting chapter, perhaps closed now. It's very difficult for the Danes to get back in here. Not impossible, but it's very difficult. So we'll have to see how the Danes respond to that. I know that there was 2 or 3 Brit clans involved in this. I think it was a bit of a war of attrition. There was timers that perhaps weren't set at the best times for the Dane defence. And the Brits tirelessly, 2 or 3 clans ploughed until eventually they turned this area all back to red. And so now the Brits control all of this stretch unopposed. They did snag a few ports here in sort of the southwest of Haiti. And they held Ponce, for quite a while. And something I haven't actually put a wee picture is they also took, I can't remember the exact name, it's something like Alves or Alve or something. They took Alve here and are defending it, which, given the proximity to the French, is a bit of an effort, I'd imagine. The Danes said, hang on a minute, if we gave that to the French, not the Brits, and they took Ponce back. Meanwhile, the Spanish, they carried on pushing west of the Yucatan, and they snagged quite a few American ports, pushing the Americans further north. Now, apart from that, the Spanish were reasonably quiet. 3 weeks ago, the Spanish were really involved in a lot of action. But other than this push, and this was reasonably early in the week, the Spanish have been quite quiet. They were running some screening fleets elsewhere, but other than this, a bit of a quiet week for the Spanish. I don't know, maybe there's something going on in Spain at the moment. But anyway, the Americans, however, they weren't quiet. They pushed the pirates off the mainland, and the Keys were taken back around here, and they began, interestingly enough, to push into this sort of archipelago of islands here that I think the pirates probably call home. This is all the Shallows, but the Americans, I think it's Bimini or something, they managed to snag that towards the end of the week. And we even had a bit of action down here where our poor European fellows who only had 9 ports, they've managed to get themselves up now and get themselves up to, I think, 12 ports. They snagged a couple of ports off the Danes. I don't have really much intel as to how hard the fighting is going down here. It's out of my time zone when these flags pop, so I'm not seeing these flags pop. So if anybody knows exactly how hard the biff is down here, I'd be most interested. And I think perhaps the surprise move of the week, and how they did this, I don't know. The Dutch ran a flag. This has got to be a 58-minute flag. How they managed to do this. They ran a flag all the way from here, and they managed to grab, and I think it was in one night, it might have been 3 ports on the spur here of Haiti, on this the tip of Haiti, and push the pirates out. So that's the pirates now fighting on 2 fronts here and getting a bit of a squeeze as well. So that's going to be interesting to see if the Dutch can hold that line. They've got the Danes to their east, and of course they have a whole bunch of pirate ports to their north. So that was, like I say, I'd love to know how they did that. That has to be, whether or not they came from here. I don't know if they put a flag in a Renommée and had their heavy sitting in a free port preloaded. I'm not sure, but that is an impressive thing, and the Dutch giant has awoken. And they were a big force back in the 19th century, and it'll be very interesting now to see how our cloggy fans fare now that they've stepped across the divide here. And now we move on to perhaps the biggest fight the North has ever seen. So if you recall, at the end of last week, the pirates, at an audacious WTF moment, managed to take Carlisle, and they only held Carlisle. The rest of Jamaica was a swarm of happy pubbies doing their business. There's 2 types of players I refer to in the videos often: pubbies and clannies. Clans are part of a clan. Pubbies are more independents, or maybe a few mates in a clan. There's nothing wrong with being a clanny, there's nothing wrong with being a pubbie. It's the different way people like to play. But this great big thumping fleet of, at the time, what was predominantly first rates came in and they took Carlisle. Carlisle, of course, had no timer, so it was open for abuse, and abused it was. Well, the first few days of the week involved basically Armageddon off the tip of Carlisle, the British capital, as pirate raid after pirate raid captured British ship after British ship. Every night there was more and more ships falling. Lonely captains in their third rates pottering around doing their business suddenly found themselves facing 2 and 3 Trincomelies and a couple of Consties and getting nicked. And even when they went out in bigger numbers, they went out in 2s and 3s in their bigger ships. The pirates were outsmarting them with their tactics and basically stealing or sinking their ships. And there was a great hue and cry amongst the puppies. Where are the clans? Where are the clans? Why have they forsaken us? Now the clans, of course, were busy dealing with the Danes, dealing with the French, dealing with some ports that they were putting pressure on around here. And this fleet that the pirates brought is probably right now the most impressive single fleet on the server. I've seen it sail a couple of times, and I've seen 23 first rates, predominantly Santissimus, with a couple of lowly second rates supporting them. And the pirates caused merry hell, capping every port in Jamaica bar two. The only two ports that were left held were Antonio and Kingston, which of course you can't cap Kingston. And by the middle of the week, the pirates had basically taken Jamaica, and morale in the Brit chat was absolutely slaughtered. Every time a British convoy would leave port, it was getting its pants kicked. There was the odd occasion where the Brits might get up, but it was very much one-way traffic. And then the turn began to happen a little bit, I feel. The pirates lost a whole bunch of ports in what was typically their territory. Port-au-Prince fell, the port east of it fell. The Brits, who were already quite well entrenched in south central Cuba, snaffled up all the ports across the south, with Portillo being perceived an important port as it was a staging post quite often for pirate raids to the south. The pirates made a run for the Cays a few times, and what was good to see was that when they made the run for the Cays, the Brit puppies responded in good numbers, and with it being more smaller ships than the Dread fleet that sits in Carlisle, the puppies managed to repel the pirates. And then it was towards the end of the week, and a couple of clans who'd been working the Danes over to the south took a night off to come and help the puppies, who were beginning to really dislike the clans. It was very toxic for a while, as we like to say. It wasn't really toxic. It were a bit grumpy in Brit chat. And in one night, one of the clans, two clans actually, two Brit clans got together. They rallied the puppies and had an audacious go at three of the pirate ports. They tried to take the three ports across the top here. Now, what wasn't known at the time, but soon became apparent, is that one major clan is holding Carlisle, and then an alliance of pirate clans is holding this middle port here, St Anne, I think, I can't remember. And so the Brits went after all three of these, and quite literally, now I was around at this time. This was late for me, but I was around at this time, and I was with one of the flags going for this middle port here. I don't know how the pirates did it. I don't know if they're all on social media together. I don't know if they knew it was coming, because there's an awful lot of eyes in the various national chats. But as the British fleet sailed within Kuhi of St Anne, quite literally offshore, 20 first, well, not all first rates, but 20 big ships just appeared, caused a 3-second pause in the game as they all loaded in. Now, whether or not they're coming out of a battle screen, pirates can fight each other and then sit in the battle screen to pop, or whether or not they all logged on at the same time, I don't know. But all of a sudden it was very evident that this attack here would be under threat, and this attack here was going to be very, very difficult. And so the group I was in realised that there was really only two things we could do. We could run away, or we could engage this fleet that would kick our pants. So we sat off land for a while, let these two port battles kick in, and then in what was recorded as the charge of the powder monkeys, we went into St Anne and we got torn apart. It wasn't even a competition, but nonetheless, the British managed to take all three ports that, as far as we could tell, didn't have outposts in them. There is not a response capable of taking the major clan holding Carlisle at the moment. They genuinely have, well, they've got at least 20 first rates and possibly 25 first rates in there. Like I say, I saw 23 first rates and predominantly Santis. And how you dislodge 25 first rates from a port battle, I don't really know, to be honest. It might become a war of attrition. Um, Maybe you can catch them one day when it's some sort of pirate national holiday. I'm not sure. The pirates responded, as they do, by retaking in quick succession most of South Cuba. But that wasn't to last, as the Empire struck back and retook Portillo and whatever the one is next to Portillo. Who knows? I've been awake for 40 odd hours biffing around with all of these areas. It's been fantastic. Um, Grab a bit of sleep here and a bit of a chit chat with Mrs. J. But too much biffing has been going on for any sane captain's help. Um, the Brits finally knocked out the what I was calling sort of the united pirate clans around this area here, um, and has very much left just Carlisle managed at this point. So this was the middle of the weekend. Just Carlisle was held by the one super pirate clan. Um, and eventually they decided to go after Savannah, and they shuffled 25 ships down that way. Now the Brits, when they took Savannah, had put a huge screening fleet in front of Carlisle, mostly frigates with a couple of third rates. They'd then taken Savannah and hoped that this fleet here would have held the pirate first and second rates long enough to allow them to sneak in. It was opportunistic. It was never really part of the plan, but maybe they could, because they took Savannah very quickly. It was relatively unopposed because the screening fleet of frigates and the odd third rate had done its job. Well, when I say it's done its job, it had engaged the pirate fleet. Its job then seemed to be to die in record-breaking time. The entire screening fleet was wiped out in 15 minutes, which meant as the main British fleet that had taken Savannah came to try and go in the back door of Carlisle, hoping the screeners would keep them, they were suddenly met by the Dread Fleet, and the pirate Dread Fleet had not only destroyed the British screen fleet, it had done it without taking a single loss. So the British, who were then attacking Carlisle, took Valour and ran the hell away, as did the remainder of the not engaged screening fleet. The best part of 50 ships got on the hoof and went back to Carlisle and had a cup of tea, which meant the pirates now had Savannah back, leaving them with two ports that they hold at close of play on Jamaica. And I think I said last week, if they manage to hold this port and even flip it, they'll have done a good job. Well, they hold two. They hold Carlisle, which had no timer, and there's no excuse for this, to be honest, Savannah had been left with no timer. So this attack, and this is typical disgraceful pirate shenanigans, this attack on Savannah was started, and I'm pretty sure quite deliberately, about 3 minutes as Season 6 Game of Thrones aired. Obviously the pirates don't like Game of Thrones. They're more a sort of Orange is the New Black mob. Prisons and bearded women, that's what they're into. This Dread Fleet, after taking out Savannah, suddenly, by the power of naval action, appeared in Mortimer and retook Port-au-Prince and the port next to it, leaving the British just hanging on to St. Nick on the corner there. Now the British were there. There was two fleets of Brit ships there, and between the two Brit fleets, there was probably about a dozen first and second rates. But over the horizon, they saw the best part of 20 first-rate flags, and two or three second rates with them. I'm not sure it was a full 25. It was close to a full 25, and you know, 25 or 23 near first rates, 20 first rates, 3 Pavels will smash 10 first rates and supporting ships. So the British once again decided to hunker down in the Freeport nearby and have some scones and ice cream. And it was very nice while we watched Game of Thrones while the pirates were rampaging around Port-de-Paix. And I guess the tale of the tape, although there's been, you'll see here at the end of the day, the Brits hold Saint Nick. They hold most of South Cuba. The pirates now have two ports in Jamaica, with this immovable force sitting in Carlisle. How that's going to be dealt with, I don't know. 25 Santis against 25 Santis, but even then, one of them's defending. They just have to sit back and shoot your sails off. How can you draw them out into the open? And if you do, they're probably going to smash you. So this is a real conundrum. And British High Command is going to have to get together and decide to have a cup of tea or something. I'm not quite sure what to do here. It's good to see Brit Chat is now a little bit more excited and positive. I'm not sure how long that'll last if the Dread Fleet goes on the rampage again. I'm sure there'll be multiple attempts at taking these back. But when you've got 18, 20, 23 Santis and victories in a port, it tends to be a total shellacking. Especially as the attacker, you basically have to sail onto their guns while the towers are thumping you with 50-odd pounder shot. So we'll see. And outside, in these waters around here, the sort of this U-shape around Jamaica, the pirates are running amok. They're changing tactics. Some days they come out in cutters and just gangbang people in cutters for shiz and giggles. Sometimes they come out in well-composed, consty trink fleets, take on bigger numbers than them, but they've got the coordination. They're all chatting away together. They're a bound clan. And they're causing mayhem. It's not all one-way traffic. There is the odd Brit win, but I would estimate that somewhere in the order of 200 ships have sunk south of Carlisle this week, and probably 24 first to third rates have been captured by the pirates. So as far as mayhem is concerned, the pirates win the week. And what will happen next, who knows? Well, we can have a guess. So let's have a guess at what's going to happen next. Well, these areas are going to be very interesting. So the Brits have got St. Nick's. St. Nick's a really important strategic port. It's gives you a jumping point to the north side of Cuba. It's within a kick and a spit of the pirate hometown. It threatens the hinterland and the northern side of Haiti. And at the same time, we've got the Dutch. The Dutch have arrived. And where will they go? Will they push into the Danes? Will they wrap around the pirates as well? Very interesting. I'm really impressed that they made this trip. I'd like to say, please tell me how they did that. The Brits have taken a whole bunch of ports over the last couple of weeks along here. And the Americans have started pushing into the pirate homeland. I don't know if the pirates have pubbies. Maybe they don't. Maybe they've just got these organised clans. But pirate pubbies are about to get a visiting. Can the Americans hold back the Spanish here? Do they care? We don't know. And will the Danes make another run on the continental mainland? We'll have to see. So I think the week has to have gone to the pirates just on the amount of wooden sail they've sent to the bottom. But overall, it's an interesting tally board. So if we go to the tally of splinters, sail and blood, it sort of tells a different story. And this is where some of the clans will claim the Brits have been doing the right thing, whereas the pubbies sitting around Jamaica getting a shellacking every 5 minutes from hordes of marauding pirates might disagree. So the Brits have made huge gains, 16 ports, and that's predominantly at the expense of the Danes, and predominantly down there in the South American Bight. The pirates, port-wise, have taken a beating. They've lost a lot across the bottom side of Cuba. They've lost all of Florida. and the Americans are into their hinterland, and the Dutch are into Haiti. So the pirates, who only 2 weeks ago had 80 ports, are down to 61. But I don't think they give a monkeys. I don't think they give a monkeys. I think they've got the best PR department in the world, the pirates. Every time they win a battle, there's an image, a video, and a T-shirt printed that shows the heroics of their unsullied force, and the shaming of the opposing forces who were to a man sunk or captured. The Americans have lost a port, but I think that's very much to do with the Spanish attacks. They've actually gained a lot around Florida, but lost a lot north of the Yucatan. And that's why the Spanish are on the up and up, because of their incursion north of the Yucatan. The Dutch lost a couple of ports. I think the Swedes might have had a part to play in that. But in doing so, the Dutch have now moved off their sleepy coast and into the maw of madness on the south side of Haiti there. The French have lost a couple of ports, of course. They lost Ponce, and I think the Swedes nicked a port off them just to the north of that archipelago on the far east side of the map. The Danes have been pushed back quite considerably. Obviously, the Brits giving them a shellacking down south has eaten into their holdings, as it were. And I think that is a plenty for this week's letter to the King. It's been great fun. As much as the pirates whine the pants out of you as a Brit player in Global, and their pesky spies in Brit Chat, and on the forums with a million screenshots and videos, you can't complain about the biffo. I got into lots of port battles, lots of biffo. I've died more times this week than I've died in the previous month. I've also killed more ships this week than I've killed in the previous month. I had two great one-on-ones, one with a Consti player, a Dutch. The Dutch and the Americans are screening, not the Dutch, sorry, the Danes and the Americans are screening for the pirates and the British, respectfully, around Port-de-Paix. I got into a fantastic fight, Connie on Connie, myself and a Dane. 45 minutes toing and froing, one-on-one. No one tried to run away. In this particular case, neither of us were set for boarding. So it was just a slugfest, and in the end, I think the fact that I managed to get probably the first decent salvo off, and then that shaped up the next 30 minutes as we were just trying to angle our ships and avoid broadsides and get broadsides and hit each other in the windward side and so on and so forth. And then transversely, I saw a fellow Connie who has been crewed by a noob who was basically trying to take the ship for sail at another port. 30-man crew on a Connie, so he was like holding on to the rudder and three sails, and he was getting attacked by an Essex. So I thought, well, I'll jump in there, surely I can sort an Essex out. And as I covered to let the other Connie go, this Essex captain just attached himself to my rear, stripped the reel off my ship, and although I managed to get the other Connie out of there, I was trapped in straits. To get out of the straits, I had to run into the wind. This Essex was pounding into my backside, ripping holes in my crew. I think in the end I probably got him down to about 8% of his hull across his whole ship. And then I made that mistake, and then he boarded me, and he was marined and I wasn't, and it was all over, so hats off to him. So be it the massive port battles, be it the screeners. I was in a screener where I was hull to hull with a Santamissima carrying flag captain, and managed to hold them up long enough for a British defence to get in there and stave off at Port-de-Paix earlier in the week. And then later on I was absolutely smashed in a screening fleet and smashed in the charge of the powder monkeys. So yeah, I've lost more ships this week than I've ever lost. I've killed more ships this week than I've ever killed. I've fired more cannons, I think, this week than I've fired in the last month. I, for one, hurrah for the PvP. I can't see us getting rid of the pirates in Jamaica unless they make a mistake, or Orange is the New Black comes on for a new season, and we catch them binge watching it. That's about it, I think. So I hope you enjoyed this week's letter to the King. A big thank you to those who whiz me an email or a telling game or whatever to say keep it up, because it sort of takes a bit of effort to put these things together. Despite the Pixar quality graphics, it does take a bit of time to put them together. So thanks for the thanks, and I will see you on the oceans, and I will catch you.